Here's what the legendary investors have been up to. We're going to start with Paul Tudor Jones, an absolute legend, one of the greatest hedge fund managers of all time. Incredible track record. Paul Tudor Jones believes we are in or near a recession, and history shows stocks have more to fall. I don't know whether it started now or it started 2 months ago. We always find out, and we are always surprised that when recession officially starts, but I'm assuming we are going into one. Most recessions last about 300 days from the commencement of it. The stock market is down, say 10%. The first thing that will happen is short rates will stop going up and start going down before the stock market actually bottoms. So that's what he's looking for. Rates to start finally going down because the stock market is not bottoming as long as rates are going up. Inflation is a bit like toothpaste. Once you get it out of the tube, it's hard to get it back in. The Fed is furiously trying to wash the taste out of their mouth. If we go into recession, that has really negative consequences for a variety of assets. If they don't keep going and we have high and permanent inflation, it just creates, I think, more issues down the road. If we are going to have long-term prosperity, you have to have a stable currency and a stable way to value it. So yes, you have to have something 2% and under inflation in the very long run to have a stable society. So there's short-term pain associated with long-term gain. So as a long-term investor, obviously this is good news. We're getting the short-term pain out of the way. But as a short-term investor, obviously we may get that short squeeze here and there, but the trend is down according to Paul Tudor Jones. Then you have the legendary investor Bill Miller. Bill Miller is known for buying Amazon, the IPO. Obviously, the greatest purchase in history would have been to buy Amazon at the IPO. That was Bill Miller. Legendary value investor Bill Miller says buy Bitcoin and 8 other stock bargains. Let's go through what he is buying. Obviously, he likes Bitcoin. In terms of stock picks, he identifies companies that have strong free cash flow trends but are trading at discounted share values. Those include some of this year's worst performers: Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, rideshare service Uber, and luxury fashion e-commerce platform Farfetch. So he is buying the dip in these assets. Miller also likes Delta Airlines, pointing out how the company stood out amongst airlines because it didn't dilute shares with new equity during the pandemic, which has paid off with improving free cash flow trends, he said. One of his more under-the-radar picks is Clear Secure, a profitable tech company with a subscription-based business that specializes in document verification in U.S. airports. Miller predicted the market cap could balloon from over $3 billion to $30 billion in 10 years as the company signs more big deals with major stadiums. Other notable picks from the famed investor include Silvergate Capital, a Fed-regulated bank with a crypto exchange, and Chesapeake Energy, based on Miller's view that shares of oil companies are still mispriced and going through a long reset period. So he agrees with Carl Icahn. The last video covering what the legendary investors are up to, we showed Carl Icahn buying some energy assets. Bill Miller agrees. Next up, Rick Rule, right? Legendary value investor, especially in the resource space. As cheap as I've ever seen them, Rick Rule on beaten up resource stocks. The good news for uranium companies is set to continue, said Rule. President of Rule Investment Media. Renewed focus on decarbonization and high energy prices have rejuvenated the uranium sector. Year-to-date, uranium bellwether Cameco is up 29%, and Sprott Physical Uranium Trust has gained 13% last week. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said the country will restart more idle nuclear plants and look at developing next-gen reactors. Nearly a decade after the Fukushima disaster put the sector on its heels. While uranium is up, much of the resource space is trading down. The GDX, an index of gold miners, is down 13% year-to-date. I think the malaise that you see in other resource sectors has a malaise that affected uranium for a very long time, said Rule. I believe that the good news in uranium continues, particularly with Japanese restarts. It's a material that generates baseload power without producing carbon. And the beaten up precious metal space has compelling valuation, said Rule. So Rick Rule absolutely loves buying assets that are completely unloved. And he's not as comfortable buying assets that are doing well. Now, obviously, when you have revolutionary assets like uranium, they're going to outperform the rest. But he's just the type of guy who wants to go after that deal, that deep, deep, deep value. So he's chasing these gold stocks down. Gold stocks relative to their net present value at current gold prices are as cheap as I've ever seen them in my career. So Rick Rule still bullish on uranium, but let's go through his stock picks. First up, Africa Oil. Rick Rule says that the Nigerian assets are cash flowing so much that they make the asset worth double the market cap, the Nigerian assets alone. They've also paid down all their debt. They also have world-class finds and discoveries off the coast of Namibia and Guyana. So they're exploring, they're growing. Rick Rule does acknowledge political risk because of the jurisdiction it's in, but he says it's so cheap relative to its cash flows that as a value investor, he likes it. He said that he has been investing with the leader of this company for 30 years. He says it's risky, but it works as part of his diversified portfolio. The next pick, he likes G2 Goldfields because he thinks they have very high odds of discovering a massive gold field, and the market cap of G2 Goldfields is tiny. It's like 62 million. He's saying the risks of this asset are that it's far away, it's remote, it's in Guyana, and it's going to cost a lot to get the money out of the ground, but he is saying there's massive upside because of the potential to find gold, and he believes the geology is there, but he also said he could be wrong about it. So high risk, high reward, G2 Goldfields from Rick Rule. And then he also likes Reunion Gold, which is pretty much the other side of this potential discovery, which he thinks is going to happen. Thinly traded, risky, but Rick Rule is trying to buy the most value assets he possibly can. He's bullish gold miners. He's bullish certain oil companies. He's bullish the uranium physical asset. And so there you have it. That's what some of the most legendary investors in the world are buying, just hooking you guys up with some vital information as efficiently as possible. This discussion is for informational purposes only. Please consult a certified financial planner when making any decisions about investing. And do your own research before making any decisions. Investments are risky, and you can lose lots of money in them.